Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. We're going to give it just a minute or two just to see if we have others joining, and then we will get started.
For you guys that are already in, if you could do me a favor, just so I know who you all are in the chat, if you would put your name and, if you're a therapy professional, a caregiver, just here to learn about reducing your risk of falls, anything you want to share, that would be awesome.
All right, I'm not seeing anyone else in the waiting room, so I think for the sake of time, we'll go ahead and get started. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Stephanie Osnes. I am a program developer at Dancing Sky Area Agency on Aging. We cover 21 counties in the northwest and west central part of the state. And so our mission really is to have our older adults in Minnesota remain in their homes and in charge of their choices for as long as possible. And so how we do that at Dancing Sky is by offering some education. And so we are partnering today with Kara to talk about preventing falls. And so thank you everyone for being here again. We will take questions as they come in. I will be monitoring chat. And then at the end, we will send out the recording as well as the PowerPoint in the upcoming days. So I will press record and I will let Kara take it from here.
Great, thank you so much. It's good to see everyone here. We have a wide range of people from occupational therapists, case managers, resource coordinators. So super excited to be here with you and looking forward to a discussion on how we can also help support you in your area as well. So again, my name's Kara Welke. I'm an occupational therapist and I own Home Therapy Solutions. So Home Therapy Solutions, I started back in 2018. Solely for the reason that I am very passionate about working with older adults, and I knew there was a better way that we could help support older adults and caregivers to stay in their own home if it's the appropriate fit for them. So our business is a little different. A lot of people think that, when therapists come into the home, that they are doing home health services, and which is provided under Medicare Part A. People need to be homebound and so forth. And that's not what we do. We're an outpatient clinic and we're able to go into our clients' homes and work with the client and their caregiver, as well as we work with, the whole team that is helping to keep the individuals at home supported and have the best quality of life. And we don't have the limitations like they do with home health, where there is often limited visits for OT, PT, and so forth. So a little different practice than a lot of people are used to. And so started in 2018 with just myself, and we have now 20 staff. We cover the Grand Forks, East Grand Forks area and surrounding areas, and then we also do telehealth as well. And we specialize in working with older adults, home safety, dementia, working with those with neurological impairments, and then we have a women and men's health division as well. So a little bit about myself, and I just want to give a shout out to the Dancing Sky Area Agency on Aging for asking me to come in. I love doing these presentations. Anything we can do to get out there and help support our communities and it's Fall Prevention Month. Falls are a huge problem, and there are things that we can all do to help prevent those falls. So thank you for having me come in. And also just wanted to give a shout out as well to Age Friendly Minnesota, who supported the webinar with funding. So I do have, I just wanted to mention age-friendly healthcare. We actually were the first age-friendly healthcare recognized therapy practice in the world, which is pretty cool. And that's all thank you to UND's Dakota Geriatric program. So those of you that are in the area, we have a great program that a lot of people don't necessarily know about here at UND with their Dakota Geriatrics. They do a lot of great training out there and want to collaborate with people. So for those of you that work in the area, they have, we meet actually Monday, we meet with different community partners. So I would love for you guys to join us on those meetings, but they were the ones who helped us become an age-friendly healthcare therapy practice. And just a little background, because a lot of people don't know and understand what age-friendly therapy practice is. It actually was started back in 2017 when these 4 organizations kind of joined forces, and it officially launched in 2019. And the whole goal is to create an essential set of evidence-based practice, really to support older adults to cause no harm and really align with what matters to the older adults and their caregivers. And there's some places you'll see the 5 M's, but the 4 M's is really the basis to this. And just out of curiosity, if you're familiar with age-friendly healthcare or age-friendly practices, if you could put a yes. If you've never heard about it, if you could put a no, just so we kind of know if people are starting to hear more about it, that would be awesome. But so the 4 M's are what matters: medication, mentation, and mobility. So as an age-friendly therapy practice, we have to make sure we're following these 4 M's with everyone we're working with, which honestly is pretty easy for a practice like ours, because this is why we exist. This is what we do on a daily basis. So everything we do is based on what matters to the client, as well as their caregiver and support team as well. So making sure that the goals and things we are working on are aligned with their goals. Medication is huge. We could have a whole talk just on medication management and how that is key in helping reduce falls. So with working in the home, we see about anything and everything as far as medication is concerned. So many medications are not being used appropriately, and people are taking medications they shouldn't. They're not taking them when they should, with what they should, and so forth. I even give this example. My husband, going to turn 50 this year. I'm sure he's happy that I share his age, but he even created an ulcer because of how he was taking medications, and he should know better with it. So think about our older adults that are out there not really knowing and understanding what's going on. And we play a huge role with all of the people we work with medication, with learning, understanding, making sure that things are, they're doing things correctly in the home, because the pharmacist can prescribe them or can hand them out. The doctors can prescribe them, but no one really knows what's going on until you're in there in the home, and it's way more than just setting up a medication box. Mentation, of course, is huge. So 80 clients we work with, we need to assess their mentation, and it's not just dementia, but it's depression, and also depending on the settings as well, looking at the delirium. And then mobility. So always assessing mobility, doing what we can to improve mobility. And when we talk today about home safety, this is really all of these different areas come into play with home safety, the medication management, and if that's set up safely in the home. Mentation is huge. How we set up the environment can really make a huge difference in the lives of someone with dementia and their caregiver. And then, of course, mobility, how people are moving in their home. And of course, one of the primary goals of age-friendly healthcare is to reduce falls. And so that's what we're going to be focused on today is how can we reduce falls and how can we utilize home safety assessments, making some changes in people's homes in order to do this. Now, I know you probably have all heard all the different stats out there, but just to get us started, I just wanted to highlight a few of the different stats regarding falls, especially since it is Falls Prevention Month. Next week is actually the official Falls Prevention Awareness Week. But in 2021, 3 million older adults had falls that resulted in 38,000 deaths, and the cost of treating fall injuries is projected to reach 101 billion by 2030. About 1 in 4 people aged 65 and older fall each year, totaling approximately 30 million falls annually. They're the leading cause of fatal and non-fatal injuries among older adults. They lead to over 3 million emergency department visits and 1.2 million hospital stays each year. Among those who fall, over half receive care in a hospital. The estimated annual average cost per inpatient visit is $18,658 and $1,200 per emergency department visit. So you think about, you can get a therapist in there that specializes in working with older adults, home safety assessments to see individuals in their home, prevent fall, and the cost savings, skyrockets. So what we're going to do first is, if you guys can grab a piece of paper, make a number from 1 to 12, and we're going to assess your falls. And then this is something that you can also think about utilizing in your practice with others to assess their fall risk. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to we're going to go through slide by slide a question, and you're just going to write down yes or no, and then we'll tally up your score at the end. And again, no one's going to see your answers, so be 100% honest so we have the best results. And again, this is just one small assessment to do. Okay. I have fallen in the past year, yes or no? And just a little, I'm going to also just talk a little bit on each one of these, but again, people have fallen once are likely to fall again. Also, once people fall, their fear of falling dramatically increases, and that can impact many things. It can, limit their ability or desire to even do more, which can then impact their quality of life. It can decrease their independence. It can create like a spiral effect. Okay, the next question. I use or have been advised to use a cane or walker to get around safely. So people who have been advised to use a cane or walker may already be more likely to fall. I mean, if someone is recommended to use their cane or walker, there's obviously a reason for that. But like I tell the clients that we're working with, again, we're providing you with that additional support to keep you safe and independent as possible. And utilizing that, if it can reduce that risk of fall, to keep you out of the hospital, out of the emergency room, is going to be huge. Sometimes I feel unsteady when I am walking. So unsteadiness or needing support while walking are signs of poor balance. Our older adults aren't getting enough exercise to really challenge them in order to improve their balance. There's even studies out there of, therapy practices, rehab clinics, when they're doing actual exercise with a professional, that they're not even being challenged enough in order to truly improve their strength, balance, and so forth. Okay, the next question. I steady myself by holding onto furniture when walking at home. Again, unsteadiness or needing support while walking are signs of poor balance. And this is something that you can look for when you are with someone in their home. Do they just walk from one area to the other? Are they putting their hands on furniture, the walls, and so forth as they go through. Next question, I am worried about falling. People who are worried about falling are more likely to fall. They're often more hesitant. They have that increased fear, so they try to really play it safe, and it can actually lead to increased falls. Next question, I need to push with my hands to stand up from a chair. So next time you go to get up, just pay attention. Do you need to put your hands on the chair in order to get up? Can you stand up with no hands? Put your hands across your chest. Try to stand up 5 times. Can you do that with no difficulty? Little quick tests that you can do. So if people need to use their hands, that's a sign of weak leg muscles. Again, another major reason for falls. I have some trouble stepping up onto a curb. Again, this can be a sign of weak leg muscles. I often have to rush to the toilet. So rushing to the bathroom, especially at night, increases people's chance of falling. And I just want to do a side note here is that incontinence, frequent nighttime urination, or having to go to the bathroom, the urgency throughout the day, all of that can be addressed. We really need to stop educating people and helping people, or having people think that incontinence is normal and, use of brief is normal. We can help this. I'll never forget one of our clients who was avoiding going on vacations because, she always had to go to the bathroom. She was embarrassed, and she'd have to wear briefs and didn't know what she'd do if she was out in public. And she was, after working with our pelvic floor therapist, she no longer had any of those difficulties, and she went with her daughters to Las Vegas and had a great time, and she went from wearing a brief to just a little pad, just for protection. So again, these types of things we can help solve, or someone wherever you are in your area can usually help solve. But so many people think it's normal as we age, and it's not. I have lost some feeling in my feet. So again, neuropathy is a huge issue. Numbness in your feet can cause stumbles and lead to falls. I take medicine that sometimes makes me feel lightheaded or more tired than usual. So again, side effects from medicines can significantly increase chance of falls. There's, if you just Google like the top 10 medications, I can't remember the exact name. I can get this to you, Stephanie. It would be a good resource to send out. But top 10 medications that older adults need to be aware of that can lead to increased risk of falls. That's one thing we do as an age-friendly therapy practice is go through that list with those that we work with. I take medicine to help me sleep or improve my mood. So again, these medicines can sometimes increase chance of falling. I often feel sad or depressed. So symptoms of depression, such as not feeling well or feeling slowed down, are actually linked to falls. Okay, so hopefully we did 12 questions if I added them up right in my head. So now what I want you to do is, if you scored or said yes to 4 or more, you may be at risk for falling. If you didn't score 4 points or more, think about someone you know, and do you think they might be at risk of falling? So this is just one little fall screen that can be done in order to get some sort of an idea if someone is at risk of falls. Again, just a few other things. Falling once doubles the risk of falling again. People with vision loss have almost twice the risk of falls as adults without vision impairment. Hearing loss is another concern. People with hearing loss are nearly 3 times as likely to fall compared to those with normal hearing. but wearing a hearing aid can reduce the risk of falls by 50%. We already talked about lower body weakness, balance, all increasing risk of falls. But today what we're going to focus on is talking about how home safety assessments, removing hazards in the home can really make a big difference. So research supports that home safety assessments completed by occupational therapy professionals have the greatest impact on reducing falls. So again, yes, anyone can go out and do a home safety assessment, but research for actually years that goes back shows that there is a difference by who they're done by. And it's because when those of us that are occupational therapy professionals are going in, we're not just looking at the home, we're looking at how the person functions in the home. And then we also need to take into account, you know, what are their goals, what are their desires, what do they usually do, and how that all comes together in order to make recommendations. Let's make the screen a little bit bigger. So many sources indicate that a significant portion of falls, especially among older adults, are preventable. And again, it's a wide range out there, you know, from 20 to 50%. So again, if we can help cut the falls by 50%, think of the impact of, you know, the decrease in deaths and injuries and the cost. And there's just so many other factors that people don't even talk about, as far as when someone falls, the increase in loneliness, depression, you know, and overall quality of life out there. But home safety assessments are just one of those interventions that can make a huge difference. And I think that OT, home safety assessments and so forth kind of get a bad rap because not all of us OT professionals do a home safety assessment the same. So just out of curiosity, OTs in the group, you're not allowed to respond to this one, but when you think of someone coming out and do a home safety assessment, what are some of the recommendations or things you think about that they talk about? If you just want to throw in a few terms of when you think about a home safety assessment, what do you think we're going to address? Share it in the chat section. Throw something out there. I think of one particular thing all the time, or I hear people say it to me all the time. Animals, yep. Take a look and go into a home. Flooring, rug, shower, tub, walk-in, rugs. Yeah. Yep, everyone tells me grab bars. So one of the things that I feel that's so overused is, you know, we don't need a home safety assessment. I already had someone out there, I've removed my rugs and I have grab bars. So home safety assessments are way more than removing rugs and installing grab bars. And I feel over time, you know, we've kind of got a little bad rap on this because we have so many clients that are like, oh, we've already had a home safety assessment, we don't need it again. And your need for this is going to change, you know, as you age and as things happen, because it's not just about the home, it's about how people function in the home. So before we get into some of the specifics, I like to just highlight a little bit about why home safety evaluations by occupational therapists are actually supported. Because you'll see out there a lot of people that, you know, they'll do a free home safety assessment. Well, if you look behind it, oftentimes it's because they're selling something, right? Because they want you to purchase their great walk-in shower that's actually a huge falls hazard and often not the best option for people. Or, you know, they'll come out and they'll want you to use their handyman services or things like that. So I like to give you a little bit of the research behind it. So the CDC has an initiative called the STEADY Initiative. And for all of you that work with older adults, if you can put a yes or a no in the chat if you're familiar with the CDC's STEADY Initiative, just so I have an idea of the level of knowledge, and then I can talk a little bit more about some of these resources that you guys can utilize. Okay, so one goal that I have for any of you that are working with older adults today, after we get done, just Google CDC Steady Initiative. They have a toolkit. They have tons of information, pamphlets, great information that you can utilize, you can order, you can get for free, that you can share with your older adults. But this entire initiative is about helping to reduce and prevent elderly accidents, deaths, and injuries. And of course, falls is a big one of these. And for the main things that they promote include PT for gait and balance, home safety evaluations by occupational therapists, talking about fall risk and engaging client to develop a falls prevention plan, and ensure a client has a plan to help with reducing falls. So again, a lot of people don't really know about this yet. The more we can get this information out, hopefully the more we can see that really physicians are supposed to ask about falls at least yearly at a minimum. And if people are at risk, they really should be referred to PT and OT, as we're able to help reduce these risks. I'm not going to read through these word by word because we'll send out the PowerPoint. You will have this. There's actually multiple research studies that support the notion that home safety assessments need to be completed by occupational therapy professionals. And I will say, and not just any occupational therapist, because not all occupational therapists are truly trained in appropriate home safety assessments. So you do need to consider that. So the reason I point this out is there are several checklists. In fact, we're going to go through some checklists today. But I really feel when we do that, we really kind of shortchange people. And sometimes these checklists lead to things that people do in their home that actually can decrease independence or possibly even cause more harm, as well as increase or that are probably costly, and we could do things that could be more cost effective and help people be in the home. But anyways, some of these, this first one talks about utilizing home assessments, significantly reduced fall rates among older adults, achieving a reduction of 46%, which is a huge reduction. And they compared OTs versus home care workers. The second one is another one that talks about home hazard assessment, really enhances safety and reduces fall risk, and it's more effective when compared to an exercise program. The last one, there's a systematic review of 36 different articles looking at home modification interventions and how they can reduce risk of falls. This is a little more recent article, this first one. And this one actually didn't point out OT, but I like to put this one in here because this is actually a self-administered home hazard reduction intervention where they effectively reduced fear of falling. And so they did this self-administered home hazard intervention, and then they also did some education, and they found that they reduced fear of falling by 25%. So fear of fall increases risk of fall. So if we can reduce that fear of fall, that's huge. This study, they found 20% reduction in falls. We utilize the HEART program with our business home therapy solutions. And in the research that they're doing, they have found that there's a 38% reduction in fall rates. And recently, I don't even know if this has hit the publications yet or not. I need to talk to Susie, but they did a study that compared like occupational therapists with other professionals, and they found that if it's done by an OT, it's 32% reduction in falls compared to others, a 9% reduction in falls. And the whole reason for talking about this is because honestly, very minimal people know and understand the impact that OT and PT can have on older adults, and it depends on the setting. For businesses like ours that are around the United States, they're growing more and more. We're able to go in and work with our clients and establish these Unfortunately, home health care agencies, they're really limited into the amount of visits they can do. I think the average visit someone gets is like around 1 OT and 2 PT visits. Home assessments alone are really not a one and done process. The OT should be going out there and doing a home assessment, followed up by a couple of assessments for caregiver education and training and making sure things are implemented appropriately, and then a follow-up even 3, 4, or 5 months later. So in a home health setting, that's hard to be done. But before we get into the actual what we can do in the home, I also wanted to point out that home modifications, home assessments can actually reduce the need for care. So I think we all probably see in our areas that there's not enough caregivers out there. The caregivers that are out there are getting burnt out, they're stressed, they're getting injured. So there's research out there. And again, this is from 2019. So this stuff isn't new, but it's still not getting out there to people like we need it to. But actual home safety, home modification can reduce the need for care by 6.32 hours a week. This can be the reason why someone is able to stay at home versus why someone has to move into an assisted living or skilled nursing facility. So lots of things that can be done. Okay, so now we'll get into the basic home safety tips. So 55% of fall injuries among older people occur inside the home. Of course, they can happen anywhere and everywhere, but today we're going to talk about the home. We're also going to talk about outside the home, and then we're going to talk a little bit about out in public. What are some things we can do? And I'm pretty sure you're going to be dreaming about this tonight. But again, my number one recommendation all falls back to having an appropriate home safety assessment. Just because I really hesitate on people taking what we talk about today and just implementing it, because it's not a one size fits all. It's going to vary depending on a situation. I'll tell you one example. We had a person that with Habitat for Humanity that they spent thousands and thousands of dollars renovating the bathroom, when in fact what could have been done, and probably maybe even more appropriately done, is a home safety assessment with just utilizing a tub transfer bench to help someone in there. I mean, I could go on and on about things that we see out there, but so that's the basic tip. As far as we always have people ask, what are the most common areas in the home that people fall or that cause trouble? So according to this research study, and then others that we see out there, the top 3 areas that often lead to accessibility problems are kitchens, entrances, and bathrooms. So really making sure that we look at those areas. So the next slide, we're going to talk about home fall hazards and just being able to identify them. So just to make sure you guys aren't falling asleep and so forth, what do you think are the top home hazards that need to be addressed in anyone's homes, really? So if you guys can just throw a few ideas in the chat, and then the next slide I'll pull up the top home hazards that we need to address. So we already talked about throw rugs and grab bars and things like that. What are some other things that need to be addressed in the homes? I think someone else actually, Steph, you talked about pets before. That's another issue. What are some other things that you guys see when you're working with people in their homes? Anything besides rugs and steps? Bed height, great. Walking with a hot drink, yep. What other things do you guys see? Great, hallway and door sizes, clutter. 100%. I was just talking with, so we work closely with non-medical home care agencies, and I was just talking with one of the agencies we work with on the amount of people that we have on caseload that are to the point of, hoarding and so forth. Low light, yes, another huge one. So a review of 14 articles identified 17 hazards that are found to pose significant risk for falls. So again, looking at, identifying these 17 areas in the home and what you can do to help reduce them, just alone could help reduce the risk of falls. So throw rugs, clutter, cords and wires, lighting is huge. Looking at items that are placed too low or too high, no grab bars, toilet seats that are too low. I have a picture later that we just had a conference for healthcare professionals in Boston, and the place we had the conference at, it was crazy. In the bathroom, there's 2 stalls. The handicap stall toilet was way lower than the other toilet. It's very interesting. Uneven floor surfaces, slippery, wet surfaces, of course, up here, snow and icy surfaces. I have a video. It's not funny at all. He could have been severely injured. I have a video of my husband this past winter going out to get the mail, and he slipped on the front steps and just went poof. I mean, it was really bad. So think about that happening to someone that already has, hip injuries, back injuries. They have a tough time getting around. I mean, that easily could have led someone into an emergency room or even death with how bad it was. Shoes. We often forget to think about shoes. I'll never forget one of my clients that always had to wear the highest heels. And it was trying to get her out of those high heels was difficult. Unsteady stairs, no railings on stairs, inadequate lighting, I kind of have lighting on here, inadequate heating and cooling, step stools without railings, and then pets. Have any of you guys fallen because of a pet? I have one time I was out and the dog kind of ran around and I tripped, and I mean, I thought I actually broke a wrist because of it. Last November at Thanksgiving, got a call, and my dad was walking the dog and slipped and fell on the ice. I mean, it seemed a lot of people have actually fallen because of a pet in one way or the other. So we're going to go and do a little room by room checklist that you guys can utilize. And again, we'll send this out so that you can use it in your practice or with others or share it with others. But again, just remember that safety needs are very person specific. And you want to have the right equipment. We see a lot of people go out and buy lift chairs. Lift chairs can actually decrease function, decrease independence. We see people go out and I have a picture of this. They have grab bars installed, but they're installed completely wrong. So use this checklist as just a general guide. So first of all, general tips for the entire home. Keeping floors free of clutter, cords, loose items. The goal is to ensure walkway and hallways are at least 36 inches wide and clear. If you know someone that's doing a remodel, if you know someone that's building a new home, if they can work with an occupational therapist along with the person doing the construction, they can make sure things are set up long term. Another example, first day meeting a new client, I happened to see that they had a floor plan on their table. They were redoing the bathroom. This person had a diagnosis of Parkinson's, just came home from the hospital with, after having a heart attack. They were going to spend I believe it's around $70,000. It would have been completely wrong, and it wouldn't have lasted, or it wouldn't have been appropriate for even the year for this client. So it's really important to work with someone to make sure that things are set up appropriately so that they can age in the right place long term. Of course, throw rugs are an issue, or utilizing rugs with non-slip backing. How you arrange the furniture is important. Keeping a phone on you at all times. There's a variety of different tools now that, just your Apple Watch, other different devices can be used to detect falls. So now we're going to just go through room by room, a few things to think about. So in living rooms and common areas, and also consider like those of you that maybe work in assisted livings or even in just public places. We see a lot of, unstable chairs with wheels, chairs that are too low out there. So any type of living room, common areas, looking at surfaces that people are sitting with are really important. We want to make sure that there are chairs with arms, they're at an appropriate height. We don't have the wheels and so forth on them. We've already talked about rugs. One thing that not everyone thinks about is like end tables, side tables, and so forth. One of my clients actually had a family member that fell onto a glass table and died because of wounds from the glass in there. So recommend getting rid of anything glass. And then just tables with sharp edges can cause a lot of damage if someone falls. And then keeping essentials like remotes, books, and games close by. Bedroom. A simple thing like putting motion sensor lights under the bed so that when you get up and your feet go on the floor, then you have that little bit of light so it illuminates your way in order to get into the bathroom. Or keeping a flashlight near the bed. But when you wake up in the middle of the night, sometimes you're not always aware of having a flashlight. It might even be to the point where someone shouldn't even be walking into the bathroom at night, so you might have a commode by the bedside. Meds, glasses, water, bedside, making sure the bed height is appropriate, and the bed height is going to depend on each and every person, right? It's there's not an actual appropriate bed height because we're all different sizes, we all have different abilities, so it's going to vary depending on the person. Keeping non-slip slippers or shoes by the bed, or just, making sure they're not walking with slippery socks and so forth in the middle of the night. Other things to consider here also is like in the bed, with your dressers, your closets, making sure things are easily accessible. I'll give you some examples in a little bit when we look at pictures on older adults with dementia and what are some things you can do in the bedroom just to help them with picking out clothing. Bathroom. How many people have been into a home and you've seen suction cup grab bars? Yes or no? Anyone see suction cup grab bars being used? So I don't know how many suction cup grab bars I've thrown away or asked people to throw away. They're just not reliable for long-term safety. So we don't recommend suction cup grab bars. They're not appropriate to be utilized. As far as appropriate height and location of grab bars, ADA has recommendations and requirements, but ADA isn't for the home. ADA requirements is for like public places. Grab bar installation really, again, needs to be individualized, and you also need to take into account the other people that are in the home. But grab bars, can assist with getting in and out of the shower, on and off the toilet. They don't have to be grab bar looking. There's toilet paper holders that can function as grab bars. There's towel holders that can function as grab bars. There's a lot of things that you can utilize that look like they just should be in there, but they can actually help with reducing falls. Tubs and showers, like I see a lot of bath mats in showers that have those suction cups and they're supposed to be like maybe non-slip. I personally do not like those because they get really gross and slimy and can actually cause falls. And then when they're suction cups, they kind of stick up a little bit, so people have tripped on them. I kind of like to use the non-slip strips inside the tub. There is also stuff that you can roll onto tub floors. I've even had clients where we've used swim shoes that have different grip in order for him to be safe getting in and out of the shower. Do any of you guys have clients that have the walk-in bathtubs that they have to get in and then sit there naked while the tub fills up and so forth? Anyone have one of those? Well, we had a client that had one of those, and he actually would slip down in. I mean, there was a couple times where we thought we were going to lose him down in the tub. He actually had to wear those types of shoes to grab traction to even sit in one of those tubs as well. Yeah, so those are some of the basic. I'm personally not a fan of toilet seat risers. I know we have Shannon's another OT in here. I would rather look at getting a higher toilet. I even would rather put a commode over a toilet. There's just other things that you can do. I just don't like toilet seat risers. They're often too high, too low. They shake, they move, they're filthy, they're dirty, they're gross. There's other things we can do to improve safety with toileting. Normal kitchen. Okay, so in the kitchen, just making some basic changes of storing everyday items at waist height, avoiding using high shelves, cleaning spills immediately. I'm not a huge fan of using a step stool in general with a lot of clients, but a step stool can be better than using a chair. Also, if you use a step stool, there are ones out there that are more stable and they do have a rail on them. But again, can we just relocate things so people don't need to use a step stool? And even better, can we do some therapy to work on improving balance so they can reach up to where they want to get something out of the cupboard? You can also look at things like anti-fatigue mats with non-slip surface for when they're standing and so forth at the sink or stove. Stairs and entryways. I will say that our home stairs is a huge fall hazard because we don't have appropriate handrails yet. My mother-in-law has been on me for many years. And I mean, they're treacherous stairs, so horrible stairs. Just installing handrails is huge. Actually, to look at my notes, I just did a presentation on this. I believe anything with 5 or more stairs are required to have handrails, might be 4. But also making sure stairs are well lit. Again, this is another place you can add motion sensor lighting. Sometimes just marking edges of steps can make a huge difference. And then of course, keeping the stairs clean and so forth as well. And then entryways, just looking at the doors, the different types of knobs on a door can make a difference for people being able to open or shut, the weight of the doors, how the doors close, if they slam shut versus slow shut. All of those different things can help improve people's ability to get in and out of the house or in and out of different rooms by managing, the doorways and so forth. So again, just a very simple overview of things that you can look at when you're going through rooms, step by step. So based off of everything we talked about, what would be some of the top things that you could do today in your own home, or that you can think of that you can educate someone that to make a change in the home to help reduce falls? If you guys could share in the chat what you would do, that would be awesome. Anyone have anything? Motion sensor lighting, awesome. What other things that we talked about that you could do? Everyone share one thing. Higher toilets. We actually redid all of the toilets in our house. And this is something too, like Like we like the 19-inch high toilets. You know, some people will install higher toilets, but they're actually not maybe even as high as they should be. Mark edges, not that they like to do that. Install handrails. Awesome. Okay, so top 5 fixes you can make today. Schedule a home safety assessment, remove or secure throw rugs and clear walkways of clutter, install motion sensor lights in bedrooms, hallways, bathrooms, check and install rails and grab bars, and then just reorganize daily use items so they're within easy reach. No bending, reaching, or climbing required. Now, I will say that as an OT, we don't necessarily want to minimize no bending, reaching, or climbing. I mean, I guess we do, but we want people to still be functional, right? We want them to still be able to grab what they want, reach what they want. We want them to be functional. We want them to be able to get on the ground and play with their grandkids and so forth. So that's why we also need to address overall balance, strength as well. Okay, so, and then it's not just about the home and hazards, it's about how they can perform. So you might not need to spend, you know, the $50 for the grab bar or the $100 for someone to come out and install the grab bar. There might be something we can do to get someone in and out of that tub without costing them any money. You know, there's all a variety of things that can be done that doesn't necessarily involve making a huge change. And it might be just the person needs some therapy to work on balance, strength, and so forth. So we talked about inside the house. Now let's look a little bit at fall injuries that happen outside but near the house. So about 23% of fall injuries actually happen outside, but still near the actual house. So some things to ask yourself or some things to think about with the person that you assist is, can they safely exit the home independently? I mean, this is a no-brainer. You need to make sure people can get in and out of their home independently if something were to happen. Can they reach the mailbox without difficulty? So when we do a home safety assessment, it's not just looking at things in the home. We want to look at all of these other things. So can they get from their, you know, kitchen outside to their mailbox? Can they get to and from their car safely? Can they carry a bag from their car to the house without losing balance? You know, can they get the garbage out to the street to be picked up? If they utilize public transportation, can they walk or wheel to public transportation? We worked with a gentleman that had vision impairment and after a stroke, and he didn't drive, but he had to walk to public transportation. The sidewalk was in very poor repair. The neighborhood didn't do a good job at managing their trees, so just walking down the sidewalk, he had to try to get out of the way of trees and so forth. So we just did therapy sessions working on allowing him to get from his house down to the spot where the bus would pick him up. Also, is there anywhere outside, like between the front door and the mailbox or the front door and the garden, that someone could sit down and rest versus having to lower themselves completely to the ground? Now, some specific things when we're looking outside, walkways, driveways, you know, are the surfaces flat and clear? Is snow and ice removed quickly? You know, looking for water puddles, loose gravel, things like that. Garage, porch, deck, you know, making sure the deck is stable, making sure the rails on the deck is stable. Also looking at the furniture. You know, we have people that their whole goal is just to be able to get outside to enjoy some fresh air. Well, is their furniture appropriate out there that they can sit in? Not all patio furniture is the safest and accessible. Same thing with lighting. You know, can you do motion sensor lighting along the path? Things like that. Yard, just general things, you know, really, we do really need to be thinking about pets. They can be a huge fall hazard. What can we do to make sure that people can keep their pets and reduce their risk of falls? So that, you know, even looks at what type of leashes they're using, how they're feeding them, things like that. And then just in general, different things around the house. Extra support. So, are ramps or railings needed? We see a lot of ramps that are installed, but that don't, they may even meet ADA requirements, but they don't meet the person's functional requirements. So they go through all this work, time and money and get this ramp installed, but the ramp is still too steep for a person that they can't even walk up it or wheel a wheelchair up it. So things to think about. Also, platform lifts might be a better alternative for people to help them get in and out of their house. Just some additional tips. So home assessments not only have a big impact on reducing falls, but we really specialize and work a lot with people with dementia. And behavior is the function of the person environment transaction. So what we can do in the home can make a huge impact and increase the quality of life of both people with dementia and their caregivers. So I don't know if you've heard of the Skills to Care program. That's just one program we utilize. And just for sake of time, we'll send this out so you can see this, but these are just a variety of tips you can utilize in the home with someone with dementia to help decrease behaviors. And then another thing to think about, I try not to use aging in place because helping someone age in place might not actually be the right fit, even if their home is 100% accessible. Because if a person can't get around outside their home, or if their community isn't the right fit, it might not be the best place for them. So it is important that we look at not only the home, outside the home, but the community in general. We're actually working with some researchers. This is horrible. I can't remember if it's Switzerland or Sweden. They have this assessment that we'll be starting to utilize here in the US soon, but it's called the ACT Out assessment, and it looks at people's abilities to participate and complete activities outside of their home. So there's a checklist that we'll send out of things to think about in public spaces. When I worked at a skilled nursing facility, we would take the clients we worked with across the street to the Perkins. And this was a big deal. Can they manage getting up the curb? Can they open the door? Can they go into the bathroom and manage everything in the bathroom by themselves? So there's lots of things to think about when people are going out and about. And some people avoid going out and about, right? Because they are concerned about a lot of these different things and are concerned about reducing falls. Yes, retractable leashes are the worst. So we're pretty much at our time. I'll just whip through these last pages really quick, and then I'll be around for questions, or you can send them in. We could always do a follow-up with Stephanie if that's something you want to do. These are just a few different situations. We were actually in Maine. I was with another therapist that has a practice just like mine in Maine. And this was a man who worked at this store, and we were looking at ideas of how to make it so people with wheelchairs, walkers, canes, so forth could get into his store. This was an example of the toilet that the point on my leg was the height of the toilet in the non-handicapped stall. This was the handicapped stall. Just simple things like this ramp. We actually, the spot that we told the husband what we wanted, he worked with a friend who was a welder to make this ramp. And just this ramp improved the quality of life of our client because she just wanted to get outside and have some fresh air. Outside, creating zero entry exits or entries can be done. This is an example of, like a long walkway curb in the front and the back of the house. Again, fall hazards, rug outside, the hose and so forth. There's lots of things we can do with different lifts to keep people in the home. Just the standing lift has allowed someone to stay in the home and transfer to and from a chair. All of these devices have actually allowed us to help keep people in the home. So this is, I don't know if my mom's on. I told her she should attend. I came home to my mom's house and this was in their bathroom. Suction cup grab bar and a toilet bench that was way too low and unsafe. I was not impressed. We had a little discussion about appropriate setup in their bathroom. But these are just an example of shoes. I mean, you know, maybe you don't need a mat or a grab bar, maybe you just need shoes that help someone be safe in there. This is an example of that tub grip anti-slip that can be put on there. Now, I did not design, recommend anything to do with this top right picture, but this is an example of something that a patient did themselves in order to be able to shower. So he was paralyzed waist down, so he would transfer to the toilet, go to the bathroom, then slide right on over into the shower, slide right back, and then transfer into his wheelchair. So, you know, sometimes even the people we work with can come up with better ideas than, you know, some other professionals that maybe aren't experienced in this world. Okay, I do not recommend this on the right, but you see everything out there. Someone cut out the lawn chair just so they could have bars around the toilet. You know, but there's things like bidets that will wash, dry, apply barrier cream and everything in between. This was at a conference I was at. This is two different examples of Reno doing a walk-in shower. So this one on the left was actually the one that I stopped construction on and we revised in order to make it accessible. This one on the right is an example, and yes, it's a walk-in barrier-free, but there's not enough room in here for anyone to even hardly move or to help take care of someone. You know, this is me during COVID, just putting stair lifts in the home can help people stay at home. This is an example of a very poor, lots of issues there. If we had time, I was going to just go through all the different issues. This is an example of someone that spent a lot of money having things installed. Again, it was not a good setup for them. They could hardly move these doors. They were so heavy. These types of benches are very unsafe, wasn't the appropriate height. Grab bars weren't installed in good places. Another example of walking in and being like, ugh, this person, for this home, again, this was all done with no advice. This person doesn't stand. They sit. The grab bars, the handles, the cubby hole were all way too high and in places they couldn't access. When I talked about the person with dementia, so just doing something simple like, and the daughter actually did this, so she would organize her closet and put a tag on there Monday and, you know, had everything on it so that, you know, even though her mom had dementia, she was able to come in, grab the clothes, know what to do versus trying to figure out what to wear. You know, these clocks are awesome in people's homes, even for people who don't have dementia. This is a little flipper device that can make it easier for people to watch TV and so forth. So, okay, I know I went through the rest of that very quickly. Overall, we can reduce falls. There's lots of things we can do, or you guys can educate those around you to minimize risk. And just knowing that there are professionals like us that can come in there and work with people to help keep them safe in their home, outside of their home, and even in their community. And it's covered. These services are covered by Medicare. And they're going to end up saving so much more money than if they have a fall and are going to be in the hospital. There's different references for you guys that are professionals that you might find helpful with working with people. So, sorry, went over 6 minutes. Any questions?
That was great information. Fantastic, a lot of it. I actually am going to do a falls prevention bingo at a place here in a little bit. So you just
awesome.
you just kind of armored me up with some more stuff. So thank you for that.
Perfect. I'm sure you have good resources. The heart program that we utilize, their website, they have a falls prevention bingo. It might be the same thing you use or something different, but if you're ever looking for new things, a lot of good resources there.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, let's see, what do we got here?
Any questions that anyone has?
Got some thank yous in the chat.
And yeah, we'll send over the PowerPoint so you can utilize this as a resource. I was just telling Steph, we can also put some of these just on a one-page handout so you can utilize it as well. So
yeah, that would be great. Whatever you send my way, I will send with the recording, in the next couple days or so. So, Kara, thank you so much for your time and for, yeah, all the information.
And reach out if you guys have any questions. My email's there. Reach out. We even do telehealth sessions. I know it's kind of crazy to think that home safety assessments can be done by telehealth, but in some of our rural areas, sometimes it's the only option, and there's actually research out there supporting it, and there's a whole protocol for therapists to follow to do a virtual assessment. If it's, we had to do this with someone a couple weeks ago. Again, I prefer to get in the home, but that is an option if you guys don't have resources in your area, but hopefully you have resources in your area. So thanks everyone for taking your time. Thank you, Stephanie. I really appreciate it. And you guys all have a great day.